Hello, my friends. I am Marietta, and I welcome you to Marietta's Art Channel. Today, I am going to show you how to make easy silicone molds for glass paperweights. Now, that could be for any other materials you want to use to make molds from. I am just going to show you the paperweight that I already have that I'd love to make something out of. So here we go. Let's dive right in. Sorry for this interruption. I shot this part of the video after I shot the entire episode, and I just needed to tell you that it ended up being quite a bit different than what I thought it was going to be. It's kind of exciting, kind of fun, and kind of crazy because I am a crazy person. So I look forward to having you watch the whole thing. Make sure you watch the end because it's definitely a different result than I thought. So have fun with it, and I'll see you at the end. Bye. Here we are in my studio, and this time I am actually going to talk to you quite a bit about the product I'm going to be using because I researched it for quite a while and it took me a long time to make a decision what I want to use. I wanted to have a silicone material that is transparent and doesn't create bubbles, and so I didn't want to use a compressor and vacuum or pressure pot for it. So I did find that product, and it is platinum silicone. And it's made by Tab Plastics, and it is an amazing product. It has the highest quality available on the market for silicone material. It has outstanding tear resistance, and also it's really pliable. And I have a little piece that I made before that is the coolest thing. You can see how it just moves like crazy. So if you want to put something inside, you can kind of work it before, place it in there, and it's very stable. And it has the most amazing quality as far as the mold making. It will actually take an impression of the most little detail. It's really remarkable. The material is also very friendly because you mix it 1-to-1 ratio, which most silicone materials are 1-to-10 or something else, and it's just really difficult to get it quite right. So this one's like resin or epoxy, which is really nice. The other important thing, it's very low viscosity, and that means it's more like watery substance, so it's easy to mix and it doesn't take very long. And you actually have 13 to 15 minutes working time, which makes it really great. The other wonderful thing about it, it takes 2 hours for it to be ready to be demolded, and it takes 24 hours for it to fully cure. So what I'm going to do today is I will go ahead and pour the silicone into my mold, and I'll talk all about it. But I am going to wait the 24 hours because I want it to be as resistant to any kind of changes in me, like pulling the material out, and I want it to be as perfect as I can on the inside. So let's get into the actual process, and I'll kind of explain what I did as far as getting ready for this. So let's look down below. I have this beautiful paperweight that I had for a long time, and it's got a flat bottom. You can see that. So I'm going to use this as our base as far as making the mold. So we're going to make a mold out of this. For the custom mold, I went ahead and used things that I had at home already, which are 4 pieces of glass, basically mirror glass, and they're kind of thick, which made it really easy for me to use. I used packing tape to put them together, and it's gonna work as far as not leaking. I've never done this before, so I am hoping it won't leak, but it looks pretty sturdy to me. So that's that part. And then what I also did, let me grab the plastiline. What I did is I used, it's called plastiline. It's a kind of clay that doesn't harden, and it can be reused over and over again. And I remember as a little girl growing up in Poland, we actually used the same material to make things out of clay. and it could be reused in school. In Poland, I went to school first and second grade. So that kind of brings back memories. And the name is plastelina, which is plastiline, which is really cool. I rolled out this little piece in here from the plastiline with this little roller, so it was very smooth on both sides. And the reason I did that is because I'm going to set it up in the mold, and I'm going to put it on the base of this. It's like perfectly fitted on the base because I want to have a space between the very base and the actual product that I get, the mold, for a specific reason, and in another video I'll show why, but that's what I'm going to do today. In order to figure out how much silicone I'm going to mix in here, because it is a custom mold, I am going to put some rice inside and measure it with rice. So here we go. I have a bowl that's actually a really good size, and I'm going to get rid of this. I don't want rice on the top of that. And then I'm going to place this in here. And I do have some rice. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this in here first. And I'm not going to worry about the plastiline right now. That doesn't take much space. And by the way, the reason it's pretty critical to measure this is because the silicone is extremely expensive and you don't want to be wasting any of it. So that's why I'm doing this. And here comes the rice. I have this huge pack and I'm just going to pour it in here. And that looks pretty darn close. That looks really good. All right, it's time for me to lift this up and make a mess, I guess. Here we go. Cool. All right, I'm gonna remove this out of there. And now I have a measuring cup, and I don't know if it's big enough, but we'll just see. I'm going to pour it into the measuring cup and see how much silicone I need. Oh, shit! Nice. It's okay. That's not going to make any difference. I am a little clumsy. Oh, brother. All right, that's what happens when you try to be perfect, right? It doesn't happen. All right, so I got this, and I'm gonna pour another one. So I basically need 2 full amounts of this to get it right. That makes sense? All right, I'm gonna clean up the mess and then I'll be right back with you. With this last incident, I guess I gave away the thing that most people know about me. I am not a cook, and I'm horrible in the kitchen, and I don't even like it. So obviously I can't even pour rice, right? The one thing that's really important with silicone, because this is so accurate, this material, I need to really clean everything that I want it to be shiny and smooth and glass-like. So now I'm going to clean everything really well, including these little cups, because I'm not sure how that would work with the silicone. I know I don't want rice in it. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean up the pretty mold. So the next thing we will do, I'm going to put this away, is I'm going to position my ball in the center of where I'm going to connect it to the base. So here's the plastiline. So I'm going to put that in here. Now I'm going to push the sphere a little bit in it, just to make it very stable. Then the next thing, what I'm going to do is place my glass in here. All right, now we're ready to tack this down first, and then I'm going to put a bead around the base, because the big deal is so that the silicone doesn't run out on the bottom, and that makes an enormous mess and waste, and it doesn't work. So I'm going to tack it down in different places to make sure that it's stable for me to make the bead. What I didn't talk about is what I did with the base. So I used this vinyl material. I know that silicone won't adhere to it and it'll be easy to remove. And I just put a big blob of the glue around it, just because I've had it happen where the silicone leaked out and it was nasty, and I ruined the mold idea, and the material flew out, and it ruined my whole day, basically. It's really expensive material and you definitely want to be careful. So here is the whole apparatus ready to go for the silicone. Mixing, mixing. One thing I do want to say, it's really important not to have any sulfur in your materials that you're using. So I'm using a plastic spatula and plastic here. You do not want to use wood or paper cups. Now that the glue has hardened, I'm ready to go. I already mixed the silicone 1:1, and I am going to pour it into another container so that I can pour it into the mold much easier. And try not to add a bunch of bubbles to it, but I'm just going to do it really slowly, one at a time. And the reason for that, what's really important, is I'm going to start at the edge of the mold and let it just run through. So it's important for it to very slowly run. That way it'll cover everything super perfectly. Not only did we nail it with the amount, because this is such expensive material, I was concerned, and wow, it was great, even though it was kind of messy. But I also nailed the actual gluing part of it, because I was so careful, and I had that accident before and I didn't want that, and this was such a huge project and I wanted it to be really, really pretty and without bubbles. So I'm so happy. So now I'm going to wait for about 2 hours and kind of touch it and see how it goes. I don't know if I want to demold it today, honestly, because I think I want to wait the 24 hours, but as an artist, I can change my mind anytime, so who knows, right? This is the close-up of the area. You can see tiny little bubbles in there, and I am a little concerned about them. It's not supposed to have them, but over time they're supposed to travel up to the top, and maybe that's all it's going to be. It is really clear, and there's a lot of clearance between the ball and the surface, so I'm really hoping that these will dissipate and it will be absolutely just the way we want it, clear and beautiful. We'll see. I'm back, and it's been about 24 hours since the last time I talked to you, and now it's time for the unveiling of the box. And it looks really good. There's tiny little bubbles on there. You can kind of see that there's little bubbles on the surface. I'm hoping that they are just surface. So I brought my little scalpel that I use for my scratchboard art, and I hope that I don't cut myself with it, but here we go. I don't know if you want to try this at home. I thought you could, but man. Last one. Woo. Okay, now for the grand finale. This looks pretty darn good. Now. Voila. Have to take a little break. Okay, you saw what happened. It was really hard. The material was so sticky, and you can see it was a lot more difficult than I thought. But I'm done with it, so now I get to unveil the actual dome, and I hope that that goes a little more smoothly. I know it's going to take a little bit of time, but this is such plastic material that I think it's going to be just fine. We'll see. Might need two hands. Hey Doug, my wonderful photographer, would you help me please? All right, we got it this far. There was a vacuum built up inside. Well, as you can see, removing this thing was not quite what I expected, and I guess in looking back, I probably should have just made a cut in here on the sides here. It ripped a little bit right there. So I think for the next phase where I actually put the epoxy in there so that I can get this out sooner, I'm just going to do a really fine cut right in here and through here. Then I'll be able to pull it apart a little easier. It's really not going to affect the mold. But it was a success, but a really tough success. So probably try with something smaller first, or less round, maybe a dome instead of almost a ball. But I can't wait to use this now. It looks really good on the inside. It looks really shiny, and it does have little bubbles around it, so the only way I'll know if those bubbles actually reach the sphere is actually to cast something in it. And that's another video. We'll do that. I bet you can't wait for that, right? Me neither. You can see right now, we're looking inside. It's really very smooth looking, very shiny, but you can also see tiny little bubbles in there, and I'm a little concerned about those as far as the final outcome. But I think it's going to work, and hopefully the bubbles won't be little bubbles on the next impression on the epoxy or the resin that I use. I probably won't use epoxy, I'll do a polymer. So I am really looking forward to that. Don't leave yet, more to come. Just like with anything else, I always question everything I've done and see if I can do it in a better way. So it's the same with this mold. I do have a pressure pot, and I didn't want to use it because I was a little concerned about my little ball there, and I didn't want to put pressure on it, but I don't think the kind of pressure we're going to use is going to make any difference. And I do want to see if those little bubbles that formed on the last mold will go away with a pressure pot. So that's what I'm going to do. What you can see down here is a apparatus that Steve Shank, my CNC partner, made for me, so I can place the material, the whatever I want to do the mold of, inside the pressure pot without a whole lot of issues. And it doesn't move around, and it's really important that it's level. So this is an amazing little gadget. So that's what that is. And I remade this box so that I could put my sphere inside that. So without too much ado, I am going to go ahead and mix the silicone. I don't need to show you that. I've done that before. And then we'll go to my pressure pot room, which is tiny. So excuse the whatever's going to happen with the video because it's a tiny little room. It's really a tiny little laundry room. And that's where my pressure everything is. And I didn't need much space and it's really loud. So I'm just gonna go in there and not talk and just let you see what I do. Here we are in my compressor room, and as you can see, I have a pressure pot. It's CA Technologies, and here I am. I don't know if you can see me, but there it is. And it's a great little pot. I have a little protector on it, and then I have an area here that I ended up having Steve Shank make this piece because the bottom of the pressure pot is got a little dip in it and I need to have it perfectly even and smooth and needs to be equalized. And I also always make sure that everything is exactly even. So I use my little tool and that's all done. I did that before we started. So once we get the silicone in there, it'll all be very even on top. Now I'm going to go ahead and place the little ball with all the rigmarole that I did in there. As you can see, it's pretty deep, so it's really good to have this. I am going to pour the silicone directly in here because I don't want it swishing around. And I want to have the most amount of working time because it does set within 12, 15 minutes or start setting. And I want any bubbles to be still very fluid and as liquidy as I can so that the pressure pot works the best. Make sure it's all centered. I mixed the silicone and I am a little bit embarrassed, but you'll see what I used. I used a kitchen pot because it was the biggest thing I had. I don't have anything bigger than that as far as the my regular mixing materials for resin and silicone. So since I'm not a cook, I think it's okay. It'll come out really well anyway. So right now, I'm just going to slowly just drizzle this on one spot. Perfect amount. Second time is always easier. I added a little more this time. Didn't want any areas that are really thin. And I'm not going to be concerned about these drops. Bubbles that are forming on top because those will totally disappear with the pressure pot and the compressor, the pressure going in there. Now what happens with the pressure pot, it's not like a vacuum. Basically it compresses the air bubbles to a size that you cannot see. They're not visible by the naked eye. So they're still in there, but they're tiny, tiny, tiny. So I am going to keep this pressure pot in here under pressure for about 2 hours because it takes about that long for this material to be ready to demold, and I just want to give it the greatest chance of removing every single bubble. All right, so the next step is putting the lid on, and that's a little bit of a trickster. It's really important to go ahead and tighten it up from all different sides slowly over time. Might help to have this on all the way. right, we'll see how we did. That's all I can do right this minute, so wish me luck. I am going to turn this on. It's going to make a lot of noise, so I'll probably just turn off the volume right now. I ended up doing it really well. It's not leaking, which is what we want. I like it at 80 psi. It's supposed to be 50, but anything more doesn't hurt it, and it's going to keep pressure longer just in case it had a little leak. I'm going to have to babysit it for about 2 hours, make sure it's not. And just to show you my setup, I also have my compressor here, which is the California Air Tools compressor. It's ultra quiet, oil free, and it's 8 gallon, and it's amazing. I love this one. It's very quiet for this compressor of that size, and it's very user-friendly. All right, it's been about 5 hours, and I am going to open this up. It's full of pressure, so we're going to release the valve, and then we'll open up this whole thing. We all know that the pressure pot is a dangerous thing, and you want to make sure you get all of that air coming back in there before you start opening it. All right, looks good. All right, here it is. It looks really great. I can really see the base and the ball in there, the paperweight, and it does not look like it has any bubbles in it whatsoever. It's pretty heavy with all that. No easy task. And here is the sphere. It looks amazing. I am gonna lift it up to show you a little closer. Hopefully you can see how clear it is. You can really see the sphere inside. No bubbles. It's semi-transparent, so the silicone is definitely not 100% transparent, but it looks pretty darn good. The other one looked good too. I don't think it has bubbles on the inside, but this one looks totally free of them. And now for the next step is giving birth to this thing, and this should be quite interesting. All right, so here's the unveiling, and I'm gonna go ahead and point this out. So this one obviously is the one that I cut the hole, which is the one with the pressure pot. So the bubbles were condensed to a very minimal amount where you cannot see them. In this one, this is the original one with the little hole that we really struggled to get it out, but we finally did. So the round paper weight was a little bit of an issue, and I learned a lot about the size of hole you should have. Even though it's an amazing material, it did tear, it doesn't matter, I should have cut it. So I'm gonna lift these up. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put them on their sides so you can kind of see whether you can tell the difference in the clarity here. And I sure can. This one really looks clear. You can really see everything without any kind of little bubbles. And yeah, there's little bubbles. Now, that does not mean that there are bubbles on the inside of the impression material. They look really shiny on the inside. I'm gonna grab my phone and show you the inside again. So I am gonna lift this up and show you more close up what this looks like. This is the one that was not in the pressure pot. You can kind of see the bubbles here. And this is the one that was in in the pressure pot. It looks really crystal clear. It's kind of obvious which one is the better mold. And maybe I don't need to use my phone because I think that was pretty clear. That was a pretty interesting experiment. I wasn't expecting to do all that. I was just gonna do one mold. The mold material is super expensive and this is a huge mold, so I learned quite a few things. Don't start so big. Make a bigger hole. If you're gonna remove a ball from a silicone impression, no matter how pliable it is, right? So I keep learning that thing. Don't start so big. Other than that, I'm really happy with the experiment because it's really obvious that the pressure pot is a lot better way to go if you have one. If not, the other one will probably work as well, but there are tiny little bubbles in the actual mold. I don't know if they're at the surface or not. It looks really shiny anyway, so probably not. It's probably fine. But since I do have a pressure pot, I will definitely use that from now on. Thank you so much for watching. I would so appreciate you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so you're notified every time my videos come out. It doesn't cost anything, but it would mean so much. I also have my website down there and any kind of materials that I've used, there are links below. With that, bardzo dziękuję. That means thank you so much. Happy arting. Until the next time.